Hi, this is the Weird Christian, and I'm going to talk about the trees in the garden, creation, and that kind of thing, Genesis. Um, and here's a picture of the early universes. These are just different galaxies, and this is like looking at a very dark spot. And notice how close these galaxies all are, but they're still quite far away from each other, of course. But this is the early galaxy, or early galaxies and early universe. But before that, you can think about what God was doing. Maybe before creation, he was, procrastinating. I don't know. Maybe he's fantasizing. It just was a lot of work making a universe and a lot of responsibility. But then and then finally he decided, yep, I'm going to make it. And according to what we know, or maybe he was waiting, according to what we know, we think it's around 14 billion years old, somewhere around there, a little bit younger than that, according to Earth years. And maybe he was waiting for these other theories to actually make the universe. If he just waited long enough, something would happen. A universe would make itself. Anyway, I think he got tired of waiting and waiting for the universe to make itself. So he decided to actually bring it into existence. And so he made the Garden of Eden. He made the universe, or planets and all that. And, they have the 6 days of creation, and then he rested on the seventh day. So sometimes they call it the seventh day of creation, but really it was done in 6 days, according to there. And how you want to think about that is, you can think about different ways. I know I was listening to a fellow talk about, you're supposed to take the Bible literally, and then he went on to redefine the word literal so that it would work for understanding the Bible. Because the Bible has a lot of different types of writing in it, and if you're going to take it literally, it is figurative. Like, Jesus is the door. Well, is he a door? Like a wooden door? If you want to take it literally. But of course, you can always redefine literal. So this is what they do. Now, if you redefine the word literal, why even use the word? That's what I always wonder. People redefine things. They say something that's kind of stupid, and then they redefine it so that, it sounds okay, but you've actually just changed the definition of the word. Anyway, here is, let's say, the two trees in the garden. You got the tree of knowledge of good and evil and the tree of life. And to me, those are really not real trees, in a sense. They're more figurative, or what do you call it? Not analog, analogous. I haven't thought about the words. I'm not really that good at English. It's only my second language. I don't have a first language. I'm not sure what my first language is. But anyway, I'll figure it out eventually, maybe. So there's the two trees. One's the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and one's the tree of life. And that was going on in the garden. Now, some people think that, in fact, all Christianity, as far as I know, they think that there was a covenant of obedience, and then the problem was that Adam broke that covenant of obedience because God made a rule, and then Adam broke the rule, so therefore he sinned, and he upset the apple cart. He destroyed the relationship there, the trust. If you talk to Jordan Peterson, from what he was talking like 7 years ago, I don't know what he is talking about now about it, but 7 years ago in his Genesis talks, he would talk about man became aware. He was naive before and then became aware. And he doesn't really seem to think that it's a sin. And I don't think becoming aware is a sin. And in fact, if you're raising a child, you want them to know the difference between good and evil. So that's not a sin. But there's something else going on there. And it's not what Christianity is talking about. And I'm not sure what the Jews think, but I've talked to some Jews, and they're as clueless too, it seems, as the Christians, because nobody really talks about it. To me, it's a thing about decisions and a comparison. And like you have Jesus and Satan in the wilderness, and they're doing comparisons of systems and ways of thinking and governance and law. That's what they were talking about. You won't hear that in any other person's talk. I've talked about how they're talking about two different systems, two different kingdoms. That's what's going on here. But the people they don't think it that way. If you listen to somebody else's talk, they won't talk like that. And basically, you have the two things. You have a tree of knowledge of good and evil, and the tree of life. And there's a dichotomy there. One's with lies, other one's with truth. One's for death. Eat of the tree, you'll die. One is the tree of life. One is you making your own fantasy, you make your own truth. And one is reality. You accept the reality of real truth. Now, a lot of people think that, and I guess I would agree that a lot of Christians don't really accept reality. And actually, the thing is that a lot of people who think they are Christians are actually not Christians at all. They're Zoroastrian Gnostics. But I'll talk about later about that, and in this video. So if you change to the end, you'll find out who are these Gnostics that are saying they're Christians. Okay. And who are these Zoroastrians that are saying they're Christians? And then one group believes in, a hierarchical system where, there's top-down authority, and one is just about being responsible. It doesn't matter what position you're in. You're responsible to others and to a law, which is a law of loving others, okay? And one believes in a kind of a static Tao, trying to keep the system stable. You're always trying to stabilize the system. You're worried about any kind of changes. And the tree of life, it's all about dynamics. Things are changing all the time. Needs are changing. Things are changing. It's about life and being involved with life, the dynamics of life. One is trying to be more like death, actually, being static in Taoism. So, that's like a swamp, stale swamp, but not even there, because in a swamp there's lots of life. And then one is about joining into the one. You always hear, he's the one, and I did a talk about that with, about the Matrix, where Neo has to be the one, and then Mr. Smith, he gets an idea that he should be the one, so he's trying to make everybody into his identity, which is what essentially Neo's supposed to bring, but he's supposed to bring you into the one God, not just the one him. But in Tree of Life, there's separate identities, and God keeps himself separate. He's sacred. He's different. He's not emerging. One's pantheism, and the other one is keeping separate identities. And creation, the creator is different than the creator. One, the creator and the creation are the same. And if you listen to Jordan Peterson's talk, he talks about kind of like the universe is making people, and to bring a consciousness, and their consciousness is just the being, and that people are really just kind of like vectors and trajectories by stating something and moving in a direction. They learn who they are, their being, but they're not entities. They're more like just messages sent on tracks, and they have weight from their message. It's a different concept. He has this concept from his philosophy and his education, his academia, but it's not Christianity. And it's amazing people like it. I mean, he says some things that are true in a sense, but he doesn't have truth. He doesn't know what truth is. And I will talk later what truth is. And I think it's very important to know, to have the foundation of truth in order to actually move forward. Science uses truth, but not very many uses truth. And we have science, we have political science, which is not science nowadays. But anyway, and so one's about doing systems. You make a bunch of systems and you try to keep the system going. And, this is something, if you did a linear algebra, matrices, you make all these formulas you put things into inputs and outputs to get a system going. And that's kind of a thing that they use like in communism. You're saying, okay, you have a whole bunch of a matrix and you put into the formula so you can figure out what you have to make the society keep its static quo, because you're not really trying to make new things. You're thinking of just keeping things the same. So, and it's very systematic, and it's very regimented and regulated, because the regulation, you have to regulate everything. And you'll find that in the tree of knowledge, that people want to have everything regulated. Laws for everything. You got to have a law for everything. And in the tree of life, it's all about relations. It's all relational. You're trying to have a proper relationship with other people. You're not trying to be, you're trying to actually have a love relationship where you're not arrogant, rude, you're patient, you're kind. And other people are too, but you're responsible. You're not an enabler of other people. You're not an enabler of yourself. All these things. It's a proper relationship. And you're separate identities. And you're all responsible for your own decisions. Okay, one's about obedience. Okay, and this is the idea of covenant of obedience. And some people say, "Oh yeah, he failed the covenant of obedience," but we're going to surrender ourselves completely to God. You hear this all the time in Christian circles, so that we can be perfectly obedient, so that we'll make God happy. That's going into slavery. That's the idea of slavery. And then you have the idea of allegiance. That's where you kind of have an idea of what you're trying to get to, which is love, the proper kind of love, God's love, and you aim for that direction, and you ask for that help, and you go that direction. It's not about obedience. It's about trying to be in the right relationship, the right standing. You're trying to be relating to, you're accepting the responsibilities of each person's, and you're accepting the community, and you're having an allegiance with the community of God and with God. You're not a slave. You're a person that's actually trying to work to help achieve the community. And he said one's more like obedience and slavery, focused on obedience. One's about freedom, where you are an individual, you make your own choices, you accept your own responsibilities, you have your own plans, but your plans are in line with the ways of the kingdom. They're in line with it. You're not trying to steal from your neighbor. You're not trying to kill your neighbor. You're not trying to one-up your neighbor. You're just trying to be a person that's decent, not an asshole. This one here, you're trying to be an asshole. Anyway, we'll get to that. And one, you're supposed to be kind of like an automaton, and that's what before in Augustinian of Hippo, in his ideas of there was a naivety and basically an automaton, and then Adam learned that he could actually make decisions, and he was pushing the limits. That was the sin, according to Augustine of Hippo back in the day, 3rd century, I think. And that's not, we're not automatons. We're not all pre-programmed. That's not what God wants. God wants us to make choices, to make our own decisions. Are we going to make our own truth, or are we going to believe in real truth? We're going to make basically our own truth is basically a lie, and believe that the universe should revolve around our lies, or are we going to accept reality and work within reality and accept truth? And I'll talk more about what truth is later. It's coming up. Okay, one's about being selfish. It's about just worried about who you are. You're not really concerned about others. It's about yourself, really. And then the other one is being empathetic. In fact, that is the whole thing. The greatest is the servant. Here, the greatest is the authoritarian, which is selfish. And you'll see that all systems, that governments, is basically the greatest is the authoritarian. Okay, one's quite hypocritical. They'll talk about higher ideals, but then they'll actually promote the exact opposite. And they usually like to label their programs with nice titles, but then it's actually promoting the exact opposite. And that's very much what happens in government. And another one is trying to honor contracts. It doesn't change the words. And, when they promise, like we have in our system, we have a thing called social contract. It's where politicians promise certain things and then they break all their promises. So it's about being hypocritical. In the tree of life, it's not about that. If you break your promises, you get sued. You honor contracts. And here's the truth. But you can have a greater list of all these things, and some things I thought about and then I forgot about. But anyway, you can make this list longer. But there's basically in the garden, it was Adam's chance to make a decision. What kind of world did he want to live in? This is the kingdoms of this world, tree of knowledge of good and evil. This is the tree of life, which is the kingdom of God. So these are different kingdoms that he had to choose, and he chose the kingdoms of this world, believes the lie of the serpent. If you're talking to Jordan Peterson, the chaos monster, the serpent, which is like Tillamook. And I think there's some legitimacy to that. It's the kind of the culture that the Hebrew came out of back in the day. And so that makes good sense. We try to take the culture of what Augustine was in, which is not in that culture. It was more of a Greek Neoplatonism culture. And so we are doing that. When we read the Old Testament, we don't consider the older culture that was coming out of there. And to me, a lot of these things on the tree of knowledge has their basis is Gnosticism. I call it Gnosticism. There's a whole bunch of names for it. To me, it's kind of Gnosticism. And it's a lot of things, themes that are in Plato's writings, who had, I don't know, what they call it, hedonism, or they have different words for it, but I'll just use Gnosticism. Okay. And so this kind of thing has been going on for a long time, even before writing. Yeah. But truth is consistent, omnipresent, and eternal. So these are the premises of truth. Consistency, being everywhere, and throughout all the ages, even when there was no time. Eternal is beyond time. Okay, it's about quality, not quantity. When you start thinking quantity, you're thinking materialistically. When you're thinking quality, you're thinking more spiritual. The spiritual boundaries of things. Like there's the age of enlightenment. It's got a quality that defines it. That's more of a quality is more spiritual. If you just talk about numbers, it's more, and quantity, it's not spiritual. It's more materialistic thinking. And there's nothing wrong with materialistic thinking for certain things. Okay, I'm just saying when we think certain words in a certain way, we lose the concept. And I think in the Bible, from the way I understand it, it's talking about ages which have a quality. So eternity has a quality. And you will see that, Jesus provides eternal life to those who believe in him. And it doesn't mean that they have a quantity of life. It means they have a quality of life. And I mean, it may be a long life, it may be a resurrected life and all that, but it's not to do with infinity, which is kind of a weird idea of quantity. Okay? And infinity is not really something that is in the culture of the Bible. Just say that right off. We brought that in after to a lot of things, and it's not. When you start bringing that word, you're losing a lot of stuff. In fact, you're actually misrepresenting God if you say he's an infinite creature, stuff like, or creation, or being. But anyway, that's not what I'm going to talk about. So truth here is these are premises. So if you use these premises to question whatever you're looking at, if it's consistent, that's a good thing. So that's one thing checked off. Is it everywhere? And you ask questions to find out if it's everywhere, that's checked off. And if it is eternal, meaning throughout all ages, and if that checks off, then you have something in truth for your observable, to the limit that you can observe. Now, you may not see all the observations of the universe, so that you may have a limited idea of truth. Like Isaac Newton, he didn't see the bending of light by gravity, so he wasn't aware of those things. He couldn't see time dilation. He wasn't aware of that kind of stuff. So his observations were limited, and so he didn't deal with those things, whereas Einstein did deal with those things. So because he had observations that showed problems with just understanding the universe in the way that Isaac Newton presented. But both had truth to their best ability because just of their observations, okay? And the time that they're in. So that's what truth is. And it's not a system. It's not like pragmatic truth and realism truth and all that kind of stuff, because those things create systems. You want to question systems, and that's what truth is about. It's a search, it's a questioning. That's what it's about. So you don't really ever have the truth, because when you start observing something that may not be consistent to what you understand before, then you have to reevaluate, make those using the premises to see if it's still true, or you're going to have to reevaluate a little bit. Okay, and I had promised that I would talk about the religions that say they're Christians that aren't really understanding what Christianity is about. And that would be, for one, easy, is Calvinism. If you read it, it's all about having systems. Even Calvin wrote, I think it was something like The Systems of Christianity, and it's a long book. Maybe that's the wrong title, but I should have looked it up. And so they're having, and they're very, very, if you read it, it's very Zoroastrian in its thinking and Gnostic in its thinking. And I've talked about those in other places. I'm not going to go into big detail about Zoroastrianism, except in Zoroastrian is you weigh your good deeds and your bad deeds, okay? Which is Calvinism doesn't do that to such a degree. They have, but they have a lot of rules, and you have to agree with them, or they're Gnostic, they're gnosis of reality, or you're not considered Christian. But they don't know what actually saves a person. Now, that's not to say that some Calvins, in fact, a lot of Calvins were saved, and then they became a Calvinist and lost their salvation if they started believing Calvinism. It's just like a lot of other, if you were saved by God's grace, and God brought you through it, and then you started really believing what was going on in the Catholic Church, and you started endorsing their belief system, then you'd probably lose your salvation. But you may, because salvation is very simple, but we tend to get a distortion of it from the religions that we join. Lutheranism, there's a certain things that, to me, they're both Gnostic. Luther's was Gnostic too, but I'm not going to go into that. I'm just going to get people to really say, what? They're not Gnostic, and stuff like that. So I'll talk maybe again about Gnosticism and how Luther and Calvin and even Catholicism has Gnosticism in it. But anyway, God bless, and may you search the scripture and pray about things and use truth to figure out what's going on. This is something that the philosophers don't use. They don't use truth. They use, otherwise they would throw out a lot of their stuff. Even people like Jordan Peterson, doesn't use truth. This truth that I'm saying here about truth, doesn't use those premises to figure out if he's on the right track. He projects his stuff into the Bible, which is what everybody does. And if you look at all the philosophers, they don't use truth. And in fact, they want to science can use truth, but the science that they're trying to promote today in today's world, they don't want to use truth. They want to use their statements, their systems, to tell you how things are, the science. So science was based on truth, the idea of this, but they don't use that anymore for the papers. There are scientists that try to use this to figure out what is actually happening. Anyway, God bless, and may you search and question and ask God to help you in your life, and He will answer. So I pray that you will. In Jesus' name, amen.